Thank you very much to Hugh for inviting me. So, just to tell you a little bit about here, this is Hetty Pegler's Tump, or Uley Long Barrow. Now, Uley is the local village, which I think we came through, which is beautiful Cotswold-Stone. And Hetty Pegler is the wife of the landowner in the 17th century. So that's who it is named after in that respect. And it's been excavated by antiquarians about 4 times in the 1900s. And I think between 15 and 20 skeletons came out of here, which went to Guy's Hospital in London. And I think they may well have got bombed out in the war. So if you went in the chamber, you'll have seen the side chambers on the left and just on the left-hand side on here. And if you're familiar with West Kennet Long Barrow, it has chambers on both sides, but this one has them only on the one side. And there seems to be a matching chamber the other side, which is not hasn't, I don't think, has been excavated. So that it hasn't had a modern excavation at Hetty Pegler's here. But I'm going to talk a little bit about a nearby site. So if you want to pass these round, one that way. So this is about Hazelton North, which is about 25 kilometres to the northeast from here. Severn chamber tomb with many different side chambers, and there's many of them around here. They all have common features. I say they have common. Lots of them have a front entrance, as in West Kennet Long Barrow, but many of them have these side chambers. So I don't know if you can see that. This is Hazelton North, which is one of the other very similar long barrows, and you can see that's the cairn there. And what it has is it has the 2 very small side chambers. And what's happened is that this was under threat from ploughing in the late 70s, and it was completely excavated out. There is nothing, no longer anything there, and it went into Corinium Museum in the Cirencester. But you saw those 2 side chambers on your diagram. Well, this is actually what was found in those side chambers. So this is the passage. You can see it's a great massive jumble of bones, and in there I think there were 35 skeletons, and they were dug up in the, I think, 1990 and archived away, and then this is the northern entrance. And what's happened more recently is, with advances in archaeology, they've got these bones and reanalyzed them. And the first thing they've found out is that, look at dating the various different bones, which is again very similar to this. The bones for here are no longer around, but we can read a lot into being a very similar barrow. But the dates from when the bones were put in there is just 3695 to 3650 BC. So that is literally just a period of 75 years when certainly Hazelton North was in use. Part of the reason for that is because it collapsed, so they had to kind of give up on it. So I think this would have been in use for probably many hundreds of years, and certainly somewhere like West Kennet Long Barrow, they were using for maybe a millennia or more. But certainly this Hazelton North, it's like a snapshot of what was going on. So 75 years only it was used. And they can also tell by looking at where the bones went and what collapsed where, is that they actually collapsed at between 3660 and 3630. So the archaeologists today, even though it's 5,000 years ago, they can get a date to within 30 years of accuracy, which I find mind-blowing. So it's probably in the 3640s of 5,000 years ago. And then it just, because of this collapse, it fell out of use. But the final thing on the bones, I'll just say on the bones, is if this north entrance here went that they kind of ended up putting more and more skeletons in. And if you have a careful look on the graphic I've got here, this is the excavation plan. If you look, this chap here, If you look, he's got his arms, and that's his skull, and he's pretty much complete. If you see down there, you see that's a flint tool there. So he was buried with a flint tool. So he's been nicknamed the Flint Napper. So that may well have been his, speciality. But he was actually buried with this tool. So a massive amount has been learned, because this wasn't, dug up by antiquarians. It was done in modern times. And finally, what's happened with those 35 skeletons is that, thanks to modern DNA techniques, in the skulls, if you drill in about there in your head, which is the thickest part of the bone, I think it's the occipital bone just by your ear, and go right deep in, it's now possible. This wasn't possible 20 years ago. You can extract the DNA from inside, and from these 35 skeletons and extracting the DNA, they've actually managed to construct an entire family tree of relationships. So this is a Neolithic family that we can see here, and there's men and women, and what you get on the north and the south that's the chamber they were buried in out of the two, out of the north and the south. And what you can actually see is that, well, the first thing to say about this is a patriarchal down the male line, that these are being following from one male to another. And the other thing you can say is that a lot of there's less women here in the tree, probably because they were being sent off to nearby tribes, or whatever you want to call them, as being married off and that sort of thing, as we know happens even up to relatively recent times. And the other really interesting thing is that, although there are less women in this tomb, they weren't actually forgotten about. If you look at these two women, if you like, the two matriarchs of the family, here and here, what you actually see is that the descendants of them were buried in the two different north and south tombs. So who your female, who your mother was, it may have had the same father, but who your mother was actually connected to which of the chambers you were buried in. And this is now possible to say that. So there's a female connection as well. So I just find that fascinating as to literally what is possible just in the last, so say 10-15 years. And that's Hazleton North, which we will be going past as we go up to Oxfordshire. I'll have a bit more sort of folklore and fun stuff as we go north, but that was the interesting science bit, and say more folklore to come as we travel on.
Nice.
Thank you, Andy.
Is this limestone?
It's Cotswold-Stones, I think it's. Yes, it must be, because the Minchinhampton Longstone is oolitic, bubbly limestone, but this is more. Yeah, this is quite smooth.
Yeah,
I think it is limestone.
You know where the quarry is?
Oh, quarry.
Well, they found boar skulls, boar horns.
Oh,
in here.
interesting.
Oh, there you go, because the guy was.
Yeah, because there's
Yeah.
JJ got really into that, but I think they found boar jaw actually,
Okay.
boar jaw in here, so they think it was some kind of ritualistic place as well.
Nice.
Right. I thought that it had all been lost. That's good if there's still some. I suppose they would have written up what they found at the time. Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
reckon that some people doubt it, but they reckon that the reason it's that shape is people used to chip bits off it, because this is a main route. And when people were travelling on horseback and foot, they'd come here and chip a piece off this rock and take it away with them. In fact, there's a story that you used to be able to hire a hammer and a chisel. Now, I don't know, this could all be apocryphal, you know, it's not necessarily true. That could be the original shape, because it is a very evocative shape. But I've never seen another stone like it.
So I'm doing the Jeremy Clarkson pose, I believe. I meant to have a bottle of the latest Hawk Stone lager that you can buy from his shop. This is the Hawk Stone, as Hugh said, and I think hawk, as in the bird, is probably a derivation of Hoar Stone, because there are many other Hoar Stones, and we hopefully will get time to go to the Hoar Stone at Endstone. But yeah, Hoar Stone, Hawk Stone, and it's a Bronze Age standing stone, less old than the barrows that we saw back, and very little to say about upstanding stones, because they rarely have anything to find when you excavate them, apart from some packing stones to hold them up. But the folklore about this one is you can see the notch in the top, the beautiful Megalithic limestone, Cotswold-Stone. And the story is that a witch was chained to this stone, and the groove in the top is where the chains for the witch, as the witch pulled away, were caused the strain on the stone. But it's beautiful weathering, isn't it? So that's the story of the Hawk Stone.
But this is the only thing in this immediate area. I mean, there could be other stuff still
I'm
buried.
not aware of any barrows or things like that. Not here, no, because at many sometimes you do just get a single stone on a barrow, but I think this is just a
The
stone.
guild of devils and witches in the churches of origin to paganism. Is that?
I think so, yeah. And also that's why the Rollright Stones were left alone, because people were fearful of touching them. The Rollrights, there's a story of the King Stone, which is the final one we saw being dragged away, and it took a dozen horses to drag the Kingstone way to the local farmer's yard, and bad things happened essentially once he had the stone in his yard, and horrible noises and wailing, and after a couple of days he decided, I'm not having this, and he took the stone back, and wondered how he was going to get the stone back, because it took so many horses to move it across. So the legend goes it only took 2 horses to get the Kingstone back, because it wanted to go home. There's also stories that the Rollrights of the King's Men circle walking down at midnight to the local river watering hole, which is as we walked in, it was down the back, down the hill there is where the water is. And the Whispering Knights, as you probably read on the information board, sort of huddled together. This was the story of the king and the king's army being the round stones turned to stone, and the knights were the huddle of knights whispering, plotting against the king in the sort of the huddle that you see there. But it was probably a dolmen similar to Pentre fan, or with the king, the capstone on top, portal being the hole in the middle, and probably had a capstone which has fallen down.